Na 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 na. I could listen to that forever. Amen. Thank you so much. Give them another hand. There's a woman who's a storyteller, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and she has this incredible YouTube that has to do with the danger of a single story. Has anybody heard that? You should. She says that we can't listen to one story, seeing and listening to a story through one lens, and forget that there are many other stories, because the danger is that we'll be anchored into that one single story, and we'll think that that's the only way that life is. That's the only way that someone can appreciate something or know a people. And I believe that it drives our perceptions and beliefs when we get connected to one way of thinking and one person's story. And then I think we also take things for granted when we listen to one single story, because we forget the background. We don't know what someone has brought that has caused something to be. We forget the work, or we don't know the work. We become ignorant of the work that has happened, or the life lived that someone has had that has brought them to a particular moment. We take for granted things like people who come to Unity on a Sunday came here easily, that there was nothing that they brought with them, nothing that they had to deal with before they got here, because we see it through our perception and our lens. And I think that when we don't know stories, then we forget the courageous actions that can shape us and can cause us to look at life differently and cause us to raise up and do things differently. They shape us, they touch us, they encourage us. And so there is a story of stories, is what I want to call it, called the Shower of Stoles Project. Has anyone heard of that before? It's something that I think is so incredibly lost in history that a lot of people don't know about, and yet I think that stories are the things that we really, really need to hold on to. And so I want to share with you information about the Shower of Stoles. And I have to tell you that Greg asked me about music for this day, and I was trying to get the stoles here physically, and I was having difficulty. And so I kept kind of holding off because I didn't know if they were actually going to be here or not. And I couldn't get them in time. And so I created something that is going to be on PowerPoint. And I will tell you that it's not like seeing them in person and reading the information, but I'm going to try my best to be able to help you through the stories of these stories. So I'm bringing you photos, but before that, so that you understand the story about the Shower of Stoles, I want you to see this video, and Mark has guaranteed that it's going to work for me today.
We no longer wanted to be closeted, that we wanted to live live our lives in a more honest way. And that was a lot of what the decision was about.
And we sat around trying to think of a symbol. And a friend of ours came up with the symbol of a stole. And she said, why don't you ask people to just send you stoles with their stories on? And for those who don't know, stoles are a long band of cloth, which are a symbol that predates Christianity. It was adopted by the Christian church as a symbol of service.
So when it came time to set aside my ordination, I wanted our presbytery to know that it wasn't just us. That if we left, this power wouldn't just go away. So I went to the General Assembly and I asked people who were friends, who were colleagues in ministry, some of whom had already lost their own ordinations, if they wouldn't send me a stole as a way that we could represent the bigger picture, the numbers of folks who were caught in the same net. And I was really hoping we'd get a couple of dozen stoles to make the point, you know. 6 weeks later, we were overwhelmed because we had received 80 stoles. On the day that I was to set aside my ordination, we hung these 80 stoles up in the church in Kansas City where the Presbytery was meeting. And then, when it came time for me to make my statement, Tammy and I both stood up together. And I wore the stole that my parents and sister had given me on the day that I was ordained. And after I had said my piece, I took that stole off and just set it down with the others and left. And it was a very symbolic leaving. It was walking away from everything I had ever believed that I would do for the rest of my life. Everything that I was so committed to. And it was over that quick.
So there's been this single story that anyone, regardless of their race or their sexual orientation, if they wanted to be clergy, that they could go to seminary and they could become ordained and become a minister. That was a single story that was not a true story. It wasn't always the case, and it's still not always the case. It's much, much better now. But their stories and their work is what actually has caused that change to come about. So I'm going to share some stories, and some of them I'm going to tell you are a little hard to hear. And after the service is over, there is a video that anyone who wants to stay to watch. It just shows you some of the collection of the stoles. It's now well over the thousands, but it's worth seeing. At least on video, if not in person. So meet Imam Dai Abdullah, who is believed to be the only openly gay imam in the Americas. Early on, he was told that the Quran forbids homosexuality. But despite this, he decided that he was going to be a spiritual leader and work as an imam or a prayer leader. So he submitted his stole, which says, I obtained the stole in 2004 when I went with LGBT activists to Virginia to protest Jerry Falwell's stance on LGBTQ rights. I have used that stole on many occasions throughout my career as imam within the LGBTQ Muslim community, as well as in the general religious community worldwide. What is interesting about Islam is that because there isn't a leader worldwide, it is usually up to each individual mosque or group of people to determine whether or not it is accepting for a leader to be considered someone who is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer. And so this kind of discrimination that he went through before he decided that he was going to lead people would depend on where he was at any given time and where he was attending. Meet Bishop Allison Abrams. Bishop Abrams received her MDiv and D.Min, her degrees in divinity and ministry, and in 2008 was considered the youngest Black female called to a Black Baptist church in Detroit. In 2013, she married a woman that she fell in love with, and she presented that information to her congregation. The congregation was split. Most people decided that they did not want a pastor who was gay, and so she resigned as pastor. A year later, she decided that she was going to set up her own church. And so she set up a church in Silver Spring, Maryland called the Empowerment Liberation Cathedral, which now has a worldwide ministry and is on live stream and YouTube. And Bishop Abrams' statement is that she understands that there is an intersectional point between faith and orientation, and that God meets us there. I want you to know that the American Baptist Church at the National Baptist Convention passed a resolution in 2012 affirming that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, but mentioned that it leaves the autonomy to each church to decide on that subject. In contrast, the Southern Baptist Convention, and there are many different Baptist groups, the Southern Baptist Convention and other conservative Baptists, including the Baptist Alliance, has emphasized women's ministry, encouraging women to seek ordination and senior pastorates, and encourages its congregation toward inclusiveness, but that is also up to the congregation. Meet Jen Rood. Jen received her Master of Divinity from the Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley. As a lesbian, she became the very first homosexual minister to be ordained since the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America gave leeway to churches in disciplining pastors who violate a celibacy vow requirement. Under the church policy, someone who is considered homosexual, not heterosexual, must make a vow of celibacy in order to be ordained. Although she was not in a relationship with anyone, she refused to take that vow because she considered it unfair. So the Chicago Bishop, Wayne Miller, met with her congregation and informed them of the potential consequences that would occur if they were to allow her to be ordained, including possible expulsion from the denomination. But in 2007, she was ordained. The bishop did not attend, but she was ordained and installed via the acclamation of the congregation. She now serves as the university pastor at the Pacific Lutheran University. Her stole, which is the one on the right side, is interesting because it wasn't presented by her. It was presented by her parents in honor of her. And it says, this stole is dedicated to Jen Rood by her parents, Ron and Nancy, and sister Angela, in thankfulness for Jen's integrity, her faith, her brightness, her love of people, and gifts for ordained word and sacrament ministry. It is also given in hope and prayer that the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and its leaders will soon end their policy of harm toward LGBT couples, individuals, and their families, and live out God's amazing gospel and justice for all persons. The Evangelical Lutheran Church of America overturned its policy in 2009. In 2018, the ELCA adopted a new social statement on sexuality that allows gay men and lesbians in committed relationships to serve as pastor. In 2023, Berkeley pastor Jeff Johnson was named Bishop of the Northern California congregation of one of the country's largest Christian denominations and became the first openly gay man elected to the Senate top role. Johnson was among 7 gay and transgender pastors who were reinstated into the National Lutheran Church in 2010 after being barred for 2 decades. Interesting stuff? This is the story of Reverend Brent Dugan. Reverend Brent Dugan was the pastor of the Community Presbyterian Church of Ben Avon, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for 18 years. He served 2 churches in West Virginia after graduating from the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary in 1972. Just before he was offered a position in California, he sent a letter to the Pittsburgh Presbytery, and he shared that he had hoped all his life to be swept off his feet by a woman, but that it never happened. He told them that he was gay. He accepted the call to Mendocino Presbyterian Church in California. But after his letter, the media got a hold of the information, and he became fearful that they were going to publicize that information on the local TV as a minister who violated church rules. 5 days before being called to ministry in Mendocino, he took his life. His stole was anonymously donated to the Shower of Stoles Project. Since 2011, the Presbyterian Church, the largest U.S. Presbyterian body, welcomes gay and lesbian persons to serve in leadership positions as ministers, deacons, elders, trustees within the church, based on the discernment of individual ordaining bodies. And I have to say that there are 2 parts here. There's the I'm glad movement started and what the people went through, the stories that they lived, the hurt that they endured getting there. Meet Frank Schaefer. And this is actually Frank. No, he's not. Where did he go? There he is. That is Frank. But let's go back. Frank was a pastor, is a pastor, husband, and father. In 2013, he was tried by the United Methodist Court because he officiated his son's same-sex marriage. He was defrocked on December 19th, 2013, when he refused to uphold the Book of Discipline by the denomination in its entirety, which would have meant that he had to denounce his son's same-sex marriage and same-sex marriage rights. He is the author of a book entitled Defrocked: How a Father's Act of Love Shook the United Methodist Church. He appealed, and he was reinstated by the Northeastern Jurisdictional Committee on Appeals in June 2014. The restoration was upheld by the Judicial Council in October 2014, but he decided to move to California, and he is now the pastor of the University United Methodist Church in Isla Vista. In May 2024, the United Methodist Church changed its view of sexual orientation and ordination. The news article reads, with a simple vote, call, and without debate, delegates to the General Conference removed the ban on ordination of self-avowed practicing homosexuals, a prohibition that dates to 1984. With that vote, the worldwide denomination of some 11 million members joins the majority of liberal Protestant denominations, such as the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and the United Church of Christ, which also ordain LGBTQ clergy. We've singled out one group for discrimination for 52 years, said Ken Carter, Bishop of the Western North Carolina Conference. We need it to stop. meet Harry Knox. And I just have to tell you that it took everything in me not to add in one more slide, because the woman on the left side of Harry Knox was the head of the denomination that I used to represent and be a choir member for. And when she became elder of the denomination, she asked to be anointed by teens. And I have a picture of Brianna, my daughter, anointing her. And I wanted to stick it in, but I knew it didn't fit. Harry attended Chandler School of Theology at Emory University and Lancaster Theological Seminary, where he prepared as an openly gay man for ministry in the United Church of Christ. He was denied ordination in the UCC Georgia-South Carolina Association of the Southeast Conference. He felt this call to church ministry, and so he decided that he was going to refocus his energies and to begin to pastor organizations, serving people on the margins, first cancer survivors, and the LGBT community. When his stole was accepted in the Shower of Stoles project, many people from many organizations came because of the work that he had done. And they said, Harry is a pastor for the LGBT community. He never loses sight of the hills and valleys with which we all wrestle. He knows his own too well. He knows that to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender in this country, whether living openly or in the closet, whether an advocate or not, means that at some point or another, there's going to be a struggle, often combined with degrees of shame, denial, and exclusion. He also knows that our religious communities, the place where we are at our most vulnerable and where we go for solace and refuge, are often the places that hurt us the worst and are the first to shut us out. In Harry's journey, we are reminded that the principalities and powers of this earth may speak on the subject of call to ministry, but that they are often irrelevant or flat out wrong. Just as Harry became stronger through his struggle, his ministry to others is as much about hope and buoyancy as it is about compassion. In my mind, there could be no higher calling than this. And I almost didn't include these, but there are so many. And I had to say that it was important to give them recognition because they couldn't come out and say who they were. I couldn't find their present day situations because I didn't know who they are, but I know that there's something out there. These are the stoles of individuals who at that time, or perhaps even now, couldn't give their name because they may be or may want to be in pastoral positions, or because their families would deny them the community that they had been connected to. I will tell you that some of them said Catholic. And this is not a minister, but I just couldn't avoid this stole because this Shower of Stoles project accepted it. But this is young Madison, who was denied baptism by the United Methodist Church. His parents said, "We present this stole in honor of our son. His birth was treated differently than the other babies born into our church family. Our pastor would not announce our son's birth from the pulpit, would not include his birth information in the Sunday bulletin or the monthly newsletter. The final act of injustice was when the pastor denied our son's baptism. The thing is, we were leaders in our church who attended every Sunday. Secretary to the administrative council, adult Sunday school participant, communion stewards, usher, choir singer, vice chair of trustees, substitute Sunday school teacher, member of the evangelism committee on the adult Sunday school curriculum, and member of the committee writing our church mission statement." Oops, there we go. Because his two parents were lesbians. These stories began to take a foothold on the ears of communities over time. and churches began to risk being removed or expulsed from the denomination. This church was one of them, Pullen Memorial Baptist Church. After lengthy discussion and prayer, they said in 1992, Pullen endorsed unqualified acceptance of gay and lesbian Christians. Within a year, Pullen was excluded from the Raleigh Baptist Association, the Baptist State Convention of North Carolina, and the Southern Baptist Convention. And yet, other denominations welcomed the ordination of LGBT ministers, like Rabbi Amy Bernstein. She said, "I wake every morning beside my partner to the sound of our 3-year-old daughter attempting to climb into our bed. After prayer of thanksgiving for my life, I prepare to begin my day as Rabbi of Temple Israel. There was no way I could have imagined when I came out at 16 that this life was possible. I am grateful for the generations of courageous leaders on whose shoulder I stand, the people of all faiths and persuasions who have been willing to take serious risks with their lives, and in doing so, changed people's hearts and minds through their integrity. They created the possibility of my life as a lesbian rabbi." And finally, these are the stoles from the many. These are called signature stoles, and I specifically got stoles from around here. They're signed by many people who submitted a stole on behalf of the work of justice for LGBTQ ministers. So one is from Larkspur, and one is from the San Francisco Theological Seminary in San Anselmo. I couldn't end without giving you the information about Unity Worldwide Ministries. I did not find a stole, but I did find a statement. It says, "The Unity Movement accepts and welcomes LGBTQ+ ministers, licensed Unity teachers, and ministerial and licensed Unity teacher candidates. In Unity, the LGBTQ+ community is not just embraced by us, they are us, because God is in each one of us. Together, we hold the vision to be love in action, honoring the divine within all. Unity Worldwide Ministries, its members and affiliates welcome with love all people in every form of God's creation, regardless of how that creation presents itself. It is the intent that Unity organizations are inclusive and non-discriminatory. We honor all components that contribute to the diversity of community. We are resolute in walking this course of human rights and justice for all." So I want you to take this into meditation just for a moment. And I'm going to keep repeating a few words because everyone isn't there yet. The list of denominations that still do not accept ministers and lay leaders because of their sexual orientation, some because of their race, it's still there. And so that means that the stories of separation still exist. From one anonymous stole source, they said, "I pray for the eventual, inevitable day when we will have inclusive policies everywhere in every spiritual institution." So as you close your eyes, if you are comfortable, I just want to continue to repeat a word and the meaning of the word Ubuntu. I am because we are. I am what I am because of who we all are. I am because we are. I am what I am because of who we all are. I am because we are. I am what I am because of who we all are. These stories made meaning in the lives of others and caused change that eliminated pain for others. We have to open ourselves up to the stories of others and be sensitive to the unknown today that needs to become the known tomorrow. We need to look out to be a part of the incredible work that we do currently to bring justice within sacred spaces. We need to look at our own stories and how they make meaning, and the stories of other people and how they can make meaning for us if we just open up, hear them, and accept them. And so it is.